What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Critical Overlord here. We're going to be talking about Scream 7 in this video here today. We're going to be talking about the box office, well, my box office predictions related to Scream 7. We know the box office is going to be on everyone's mind the closer we get to February of next year. And by everyone, I mean those of us who are invested in the success or failure of this film. Now, let's get this out of the way up top. Do I think that Scream 7 will flop? No. However, I think pretending it's impossible is a complete head in the clouds way of thinking. It's divorced from reality and puts the current state of Hollywood on too high of a pedestal. The biggest reason Scream 7 likely will not flop is because Paramount has once again decided to release it against very little competition. Thus, the massive fan base that exists has nothing to consider as an alternative when it comes to going to the theaters on that weekend. There's nothing that would likely steal a casual or hardcore Scream fan away from Scream 7 during that weekend when it's the only big film dropping. So the same can be true for the general audience when they show up to buy their ticket. The only thing stopping either party is the idea of waiting for it to show up on VOD in a few months, because that's what Hollywood studios are conditioning people to do. Whether you want to engage with that or not, this quick release to VOD trend is motivating people to not go to the theater. I can't be the only one that is seeing this. But why would someone want to watch Scream 7 on video on demand instead of rushing out to go see it in theaters? Well, being the 7th entry in an ongoing slasher franchise can sound pretty unattractive to many, especially if you've already been there, done that with Scream 1 through 6. I did a community post the other day asking Gen Zers to respond, asking them how often do they go to the theater. I don't know how many of you that responded are actually in my generation, but yes, I can relate to some of those replies, especially the financial stuff. Financial stuff is another reason many could choose to wait for Scream 7 on video on demand. Another thing is that my demographic is very important for the future of theaters and box office, but a lot of millennials do not get that. That 18 to 25 or so demographic, you should not be ignoring that, nor should you be dismissing them. I bring that up to say it'd be foolish to think that the absence of Sam and Tara couldn't result in a significant drop from Gen Z participants. Scream 5 and 6, whether you like them or not, did bring in new fans, many who were probably introduced to Scream with Scream 4 and finally got to experience a Scream film on the big screen 2 times with Scream 5 and Scream 6. They fell in love with the characters, and now those characters are mostly gone. Now, of course, I'm saying mostly since Chad and Mindy are still here. There's no telling what percentage of that demographic might choose to sit this one out or not return for repeat viewings like they did for Scream 5 and Scream 6. I'm not saying most of Gen Z will not bother to watch Scream 7. I'm not saying that at all. But to pretend it's impossible for a lot of them to say, nah, I'll wait because it's not about Sam, I think that's just ridiculous to think that. Gen Z also has a lot of hand-me-down content being thrown at us. I will say that. While I was lucky enough to grow up with the Scream franchise and other franchises that came out around the time of Scream, or even prior to that, I grew up around the Scream franchise immediately after Scream 3 release. This is not a Gen Z franchise, so this could be considered a hand-me-down for many, and it's easy to adopt this mindset of, well, when are we going to get something for ourselves? When is our generation going to have a lot of franchises that we can constantly keep talking about for the foreseeable future? Right now, it just feels like a lot of hand-me-down content is being produced from Hollywood. Yeah, we can like Scream, but do we want to rock with Scream if it's just going to keep going backwards by reinstalling the OG Final Girl, one of my comfort characters in Sidney Prescott? I can already hear people thinking, well, Gen Z doesn't matter, Critical. Yes, we do. We do matter. That's exactly the problem with a lot of people today. Too many are writing the generation off, forgetting that once millennials and every other older generation die off, if the younger generation don't care to watch movies in theaters, Hollywood is cooked. Any business, to be quite honest. So while Scream 7 won't flop in my eyes, I don't see that happening, it can see a significant drop due to several unfortunate realities related to personal finances, lack of interest in wanting those finances to be spent on the 7th entry of a slasher franchise that is going backwards in many people's eyes, quick VOD release trends conditioning you to just wait for it to be at home, the boycott, the rise of poor etiquette in the theater, etc. There's just a lot of reasonable ways that Scream 7 can flop, but I just don't think it will. That second trailer could showcase enough of the young cast for a good chunk of my generation, Gen Z, to say, hey, well, McKenna Grace is in this. Oh, shit. She was just in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Let me go check her out in Scream 7 now. If you can reel in an adequate amount of the Five Nights at Freddy's fans, that can be another reason Scream 7 is able to stay afloat and does not flop. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich, and McKenna Grace. Now, McKenna and Matthew are the ones in Scream 7, and if that movie is the hit that I know it will be, Five Nights at Freddy's 2, dropping the second Scream 7 trailer during the fallout from that likely could be a benefit to Scream 7. Another reason Scream 7 likely won't flop is because, well, it's not being overproduced for $100 million or more. These movies that are doing that, they're killing themselves because a lot of them barely break even with a budget that high. I think a lot of people will also be reminded that the average person is not worried about Scream 7 the way we are until it's closer to the release date. They don't care about Neve Campbell, Melissa Barrera, or any of the drama that has zero to do with them keeping a roof over their heads. They are not lurking every corner of the internet being obsessive know-it-alls about the project, about Spyglass, Paramount, and all these other things that people are online arguing about day in and day out. If Scream 7 makes less than Scream 5 and 6, I think that'll mostly be due to a huge drop in Gen Z turnout. Again, that's if it happens. I'm not saying it will. At this point, I believe that the film is going to make a little less than Scream 6 due to a predicted drop in Gen Z turnout and the anticipated mixed reviews. As much as you want to argue that the reviews don't matter, they do influence what people will rush out and watch. If word of mouth is a bit more sour this time, I expect that'll be due to Sydney's return being criticized more than anything else. This is a character that many would argue shouldn't die. So if your audience of critics believe her return is making the series stagnant and that word of mouth spreads like a wildfire, not just from critics, but to people consuming the film in the general audience, the box office could take a hit. I just don't see this getting the same amount of love that 5 and 6 got. A lot of people are tired of Sidney Prescott. Most of you listening might not be, and that's fine, but it's easy to grow tired of a character when you've been told for years that she will get her happy ending and it seems to be nowhere in sight. A good chunk of the public probably already trusts that she will not die and as a result decide to skip Scream 7 altogether. But I do think Scream 7 at this point will bring in around 160 million or so worldwide by the time it's all said and done, which is what, like 9 million less than what Scream 6 did, which would still be profitable depending on what the budget is. If it's somewhere around like 30 to 40 million, I think that'll be fine, depending on, again, what the budget is. Another thing I wanted to address really quick before I close out this video is that there is this growing sentiment that the general audience seems to be growing tired of sequels, remakes, prequels, or just all of these different iterations of franchises. Franchise fatigue is what I see it being called. I don't think that's something that Scream is immune to. One thing I know I'm already going to be gushing over by the time I'm done watching Scream 7 is Neve Campbell's performance in that third act. The stuff that they are giving her to work with, it should be like, again, one of her best performances in the series since Scream 3, easily, hands down. I cannot wait to see this woman's performance in the third act of Scream 7. But let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comment section below. If you haven't already, of course, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. In the description, I have links to all my social media accounts. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can message me there, of course, to let me know if there are any movies, news, or reviews you would like me to cover in the future. And with all that in mind, guys, I will see you in the next video.